Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's session. My name is Umair Moinuddin, and I'm a senior solution architect at Snowflake. Here is the agenda for today. We'll start with migration strategy, then get into architecture differences, then get into migrating BigQuery data warehouse workload to Snowflake. Then we'll go into migrating data science workload to Snowflake, and then lesson learns and best practices. Let's start with the migration strategy. Why Snowflake? Snowflake has a unique architecture built for cloud. Okay. With Snowflake, all of your data is centralized and shareable with external parties. Snowflake supports structured, unstructured, semi-structured data so that all of your data is consolidated in single repository so that it can act as a single source of truth. Also, live data in Snowflake can be shared with external parties. With Snowflake, we utilize cloud. With our unique architecture, we are able to provide you unlimited scale. At the same time, we can separate your storage and compute. This helps us isolate your workloads. At the same time, there will not be any spikes. Snowflake has a simple, cost-effective architecture, and we run in cloud as a service, so we don't have to buy any hardware, right? And this will help you faster time to value. Right? With all this, Snowflake customer get the faster time, faster and better decision making. Let's get into why you are migrating to Snowflake. If you don't know why, then you will not know how. Simon Sinek. This is also true in the context of migration. If you don't know why you are migrating, then you will not know how you are going to migrate and what kind of innovation opportunities you will have. Right? Let's deep dive into your data platform. For example, let's understand what data platform you have in BigQuery, then go into data analysis and understand what kind of data you have, and then go into workload and line of business. For example, if you have customer insight data and you are doing analytics workload, then your migration strategy would be completely different versus if you have governance data and you are running compliance workload. Let's get into basic migration process. Here are some of the migration processes that you will follow for migration. What do you think is the most difficult task during migration? Let me make it easier for you. Data migration. Think about code conversion. Code conversion is the most difficult task during migration. Okay? And the reason is what you can't see matters. Or as one of my other customers said, remove the blind spots. I think this is where Snowflake professional services team can help you in the code conversion process. At Snowflake, we have a SnowConvert software, which can help you migrate your existing SQL statements into Snowflake compliant SQL statements. It can take your SQL procedures and convert into Java and Snowflake scripting. It can also take your proprietary scripts and convert into Python script. One of my customers sent me thousands lines of code, and he asked me to analyze. I utilized the SnowConvert, and within few minutes, I was able to analyze the code and provide the feedback. Let's get into migration journey. Right? Here is the high-level overview of your migration journey. You'll start with planning, then you will go into conversion state, and then you will test and deploy. What I want you to focus is on the customer effort. During the testing phase of the project, you will have the most customer effort. And this is where resource strategy is crucial. Right? Make sure you allocate the right number of resources at the right stage of the project. Let's compare BigQuery versus Snowflake architecture. Let's start with BigQuery. Dremel is the BigQuery query engine, and Colossus is the storage layer, and Jupyter and Borg are the orchestrator. Right? Jupyter is for cluster management, and Borg, I think Borg is the cluster management here. I think I have already covered Snowflake, and you guys might have already learned a lot about Snowflake architecture. So I'll move ahead. At the beginning of the project, it's very important for the customers to understand the hierarchy of the environment. Let's compare BigQuery and Snowflake hierarchy. Let me start with BigQuery. At the root of the hierarchy is the organization in BigQuery. Then you have folder, and each folder can have a project. The project can be associated with a billing account, and then you have data sets. And a data set can have table, views, procedure, sequence, and other objects, right? And data set, if you are coming from a traditional background, is same as schema. Let's get into Snowflake hierarchy, right? Again, Snowflake hierarchy start with an organization, but you have accounts in an organization. You can have multiple accounts in an organization. Think of account as a container. So that account will have databases, and databases will have its own schema, and schema will have its own tables. If you look here in Snowflake hierarchy, users are created at the account level. But if you look at the BigQuery hierarchy, users are created at the organization level. So this is where a lot of customers get confused when coming to Snowflake, and this is why I want to cover this topic first. Let's get into migrating BigQuery data warehouse workload to Snowflake. The example that you are seeing here is for migrating BigQuery from Google Cloud Platform to Snowflake on Azure. Out of many migration examples, I have selected this example where we are going to use Airflow as the scheduler layer, and we will use API calls to extract the data out of BigQuery. Right, so your data is scheduled to extract out of BigQuery using Airflow. Then you are going to extract data using API here. In the API, there are some BigQuery commands like BQ. You can use BQ to extract the data, table level data, right? Then the data lands in the Google Cloud Storage. From there, you can use AZ copy to copy the data into Azure Data Lake. So copying data between Google Cloud Platform and Azure Data Lake, it took us 27 seconds to copy 280 GB worth of data. So it was pretty fast, right? And you are doing cross-cloud data copy. So the data is ready to be loaded in ADLS, and this is where you have to create a storage integration so that the data can be ingested into Snowflake. Then you can load the data into Snowflake raw layer using copy into command. This is what we have used. So here, with my customer, we have tested more than 10 ingestion patterns. Right? Copy into was one of the ingestion patterns, and there were other ingestion patterns that we have used. And there are a few guardrails that we provide for the customer. Make sure you monitor the cost, right? And you also set up security and monitoring at the same time. So out of 10 ingestion patterns, the fastest time that we got was from copy into command, right? And let's get to the next. Let's get to the next step of. So the data is ingested into Snowflake, and so the data is ingested into Snowflake layer. So it took us about 2 minutes 37 seconds to copy data end to end for a 280 GB of data. But you can improve that performance, but these are some of the statistics. So we are actively working to improve that, but 280 GB is still a lot, like compressed data. So the data is landed into Snowflake. From there, you can transform the data into curated layer, and data gets landed into curated layer. So these are some standard practice that you will follow after that, right? Then the data lands into presentation layer, and then the data can be accessed by different applications. So a lot of customers think that they don't need a data lake strategy, but they do. And again, the example that I have picked up is between cloud migration, and this is where customer want to establish a data lake. So for setting up a data lake environment, we have provided some guardrails like access control, security, and governance, right? And this would be very helpful when the customer want to extract the data out of Snowflake and sync it with BigQuery, right? During the migration phase, you might have to have a validation process, right? So that is where we recommend you to have a good data lake strategy. Going to next slide. So this is the most frequently asked question in migration. Which tools we should use for migration? Here are some of the examples of the tools that you can use for migration. At the ingestion level, we recommend you to use Snowflake copy into command and Snowpipe, and you can also use Kafka connectors. For transformation, you can use dbt. A lot of our customers are using dbt. Right? For validation, you can use stored procedures. And for deployment, you can use Terraform or schema change. For scheduling, you can use Airflow. That's the most popular tool around. And for reporting, again, based on your requirements, you would use Power BI Tableau. Let's get into migrating data science workload to Snowflake. Here is the high-level architecture overview of BigQuery ML and Snowflake platform for data science and ML. There are a lot of things here, and I would definitely have a separate session just to cover the data science, right? So let's get into a couple of features which BigQuery customer like about Snowflake. Let's start with the advanced governance features. BigQuery customer love Snowflake security, and that's one of the biggest reason they migrate to Snowflake. My customer love the tag-based masking policy, anonymization, classification, row and column access policies. Let's get into elastic processing engine layer, right? Snowflake has added support for Python, integrated with Anaconda repository and OS libraries. And this is where BigQuery customers might have some learning curve. But at the same time, they love Python. And this is where data scientists show their strength. Here is a high-level overview of machine learning lifecycle. With Snowflake, your data is already in Snowflake database. You can directly start working in the development phase. BigQuery customer love Snowflake features like snapshot that would help them create multiple copies. So this is where they like Snowflake database better. And with Summit, we are also sharing new ML-powered functions, SQL functions that will help the big data science team more, right? So, okay. Let's get into lesson learned from BigQuery to Snowflake migration. Let's start with the data type conversion. A lot of customers, when migrating to Snowflake, start by analyzing the data first and doing data profiling and data analysis. Here are some of the BigQuery to Snowflake conversion, data type conversion that you should follow. Right. Let's get into project plan and roadmap. At Snowflake, we recommend you to have an overarching project plan. A lot of customers need guidance with the project plan. This is where Snowflake can provide a detailed project plan, starting from setting up your Snowflake environment, going into setting up Snowflake security, RBAC, data migration, all the way up to go live. And we have multiple different versions of the project plan. We can share those plans with the customers. Migration approach. So we recommend customer to decide on the migration approach, and we highly recommend to go for modernization. Customer also should do a lot of benchmarking. Depending on your technologies, what technologies you have, we recommend you to go through and test your ingestion patterns, like how customer has more than 10 ingestion patterns. You can do that and benchmark that. Based on that, you can start working on the migration process. I want you guys to pay more attention on RBAC and security, and this is where a lot of Snowflake customers and BigQuery customers need help, right? At Snowflake, we provide you a lot of script to set up your RBAC environment. We have a new software called Rollout, R-O-L-E-O-U-T, one word, that will help you set up RBAC. It will provide you a step-by-step process to enter your database name, then schema name, what kind of functional roles and access role you want to have. And in the end, it will generate scripts for you. It can also generate Terraform code for your deployment. My customer has used those scripts and added into a repository and combined with schema change, so that now they have a process to deploy the RBAC environment. A lot of BigQuery customers start by providing the access at the table level. So this was one of the biggest lessons learned for BigQuery customers, that they would directly grant access at the table level. Instead of that, you should be assigning the access at the schema level, right? And here is the important point. We want customers to set up their RBAC policy such a way that roles own everything, not the users. Going into cloud automation, private link requires a lot of time to set up, and we recommend customers to set up the private link early in the project. Also, make sure you have an automation strategy. So one of my customers, they decided to move from single account to multiple accounts, and they did not set up automation, or they did not invest time in automation. And this is where, if you are trying to add more accounts or trying to redo something, automation would be very helpful. At the beginning, it might seem like a difficult task or a lot of tasks, but it's worth your effort. And establishing a data lake strategy, as I was discussing earlier. So one of my customer, moving into deployment process. So one of my customer, they started modifying the code directly in the Snowflake database. And this is where deployment process become very crucial. Make sure you follow or utilize schema change for your deployment, and so that you have a properly defined branching strategy, right? Let's get into cost, right? So we recommend customers to implement resource strategy early in the project, develop a consumption plan so that you understand what's happening in your environment. At the same time, we provide you a lot of dashboards so that will help you understand what kind of cost or what kind of spending you are doing, what is your storage cost, what is your compute cost, right? So make sure you set up those dashboards in your environment. Going into data recovery and disaster recovery. So we recommend customer to set up the data retention time. One of the customer had an issue in their production environment, and they did not have a DR document. So we highly recommend you to create a DR document with multiple scenarios. If you have any DR issue, you can use that document and resolve your issues. Also, establishing an account strategy is really important. So make sure you spend time analyzing your account strategy and deploy or implement the right account strategy. Going into governance, we recommend customer to establish centralized tracking and decentralized tagging. One of the biggest lesson learned here is we recommend you to simplify. It can get overcomplicated. Make sure you simplify your governance process. Going into training and enablement. As architects, we always recommend architecture should come before engineering. But to me, Snowflake knowledge should come before architecture. This is where we ask you to get trained and understand what you are going to implement. When signing up for Snowflake contract, you might have a lot of training funds. We highly recommend you to utilize those training funds. Going into warehouse optimization, I think you might have already attended few optimization sessions, but we recommend you to separate out the workloads. Make sure you assign the right warehouse strategy for your workloads. Then auto suspend. This is where a lot of customers miss out. And at Snowflake, we have some scripts that we can provide customers to run that will analyze your existing environment and provide you recommendation. For example, you are using an extra large warehouse, and with our analysis, it can tell you that it should scale down or you should scale up. So ask for that. Like if you are working with your AE, ask for that information. Let's get into best practices for Snowflake migration. Let's start with data model and development. These days, a lot of customers think they don't need data modeling, but that's the foundation for your environment. This is where you will, if you have a right data model, that will help you scale, right? And we recommend you to develop that data model and create your data lineage, right? Going into code conversion, right? A lot of customers don't use no-convert. We recommend you to use the right conversion tool, follow the best practices, and document your complete prioritization list. So what objects are important, and make sure you prioritize that. And also make sure you have a data lineage that you can follow. And create an initial security model. I think this is where a lot of customers, they would just create a Snowflake account, they will start migrating without even setting up their proper RBAC standards, right? And a lot of time we have to go back and fix those environments. And this is where we recommend you to set up that initial security model. Going into data architecture, again, as I was mentioning that architecture should come before engineering, and this is true. Like a lot of people, they will just start ingesting the data without architecting their environment. Data type mapping, I think we highly recommend you to do data type mapping so that you have consistencies across your environment and for your reporting as well. And important point in data migration is agree on success criteria. What are your success criteria that you want to achieve by data migration? One of my customers, they just want to move the data from BigQuery to Snowflake without even deciding the success criteria. And there are a lot of opportunities that you can think of there. Like with only few extra steps, you can innovate new solutions. So make sure you decide on the success criteria. Okay. Ingestion and transformation, I think we highly recommend you to develop a data lake strategy. Split the files into 100 to 250 MB. This is very important. So I'm working with one of the customer. They are seeing a huge ingestion cost. And when we analyzed the data, we found out that if they switch the data file size, they would be parallelizing the load and saving a lot of money. So we highly recommend you to set your data file size between 100 to 250 MB. Also, provide a lot of monitoring dashboard for your ingestion, for your security and governance. We highly recommend you to use those dashboards. Coming to validation and testing, we highly recommend you to develop a validation plan. So one of my customer, he reached out to me asking for a validation plan, and we have close to 5 different validation plans. And he was so happy seeing that, oh, you are giving me options. So I recommend you to have a validation plan, and this is very crucial so that you don't miss out anything, right? And develop a cutover plan based on your validation and testing, and again, agree on success criteria in the validation and testing. Looking at all the things that we have covered today, a quote from Winston Churchill come to my mind. Out of intense complexities, intense simplicities emerge. And this is what we do at Snowflake Professional Services. We simplify the processes and provide solutions. Thank you, everyone.